Welcome back to Kids Planning. I'm Peyton.
And I'm Jarred.
And today we're going to teach you how to play Cascadia.
In Cascadia, from designer Randy Flynn, players compete to create the most diverse environment with their habitat tiles and wildlife tokens.
The game includes the habitat tiles, starter tiles, wildlife tokens, scoring cards, nature tokens, a cloth bag, and the score pad. During the game, players will be drafting habitat tiles to create their environment. Then they'll be putting wildlife tokens on matching habitat tiles to score. And you win by having the most points at the end of the game.
Most of your scoring will come from your wildlife tokens, but you will also score points from your largest connected section of each habitat type.
To set up the game, put all the wildlife tokens in the cloth bag, then give each player a starter tile, and make a stack of habitat tiles face down.
The number of habitat tiles you use is based on the number of players. You will use 20 per player plus 3. So for 2 players you need 43, for 3 players you need 63, and for 4 players you need 83.
Then take a scoring card for each type of wildlife and put them in the middle of the table.
You can choose these randomly, or if it's your first game, use the cards with the A in the bottom corner. Next, put the supply of nature tokens where everyone can reach them, then lay out 4 random habitat tiles in the middle of the table and pull 4 random wildlife tokens from the back and place one above each habitat tile, going left to right.
Then the player who most recently saw wildlife goes first.
Even though we're set up for a 2-player game, we're only going to build 1 player's environment in this example. On each turn, you will take 1 habitat tile and the wildlife token above it. You have to take the pair. You can't mix them up and take like this tile and this token, unless you have a nature token, which we'll talk about in a minute. Then put your habitat tile into your environment. You do not have to match up habitats on the tiles, but you do score points at the end of the game for your largest section of each habitat. So if you can match them up, you should. Then put the wildlife token on a habitat tile with the matching symbol. So I can put this salmon token here, but I can't put in any of these spots because they don't have any fish symbols, but this space does. And you can only put 1 wildlife token on each tile.
If you can't or don't want to place the wildlife token you took, just put it back in the bag.
Then replace the habitat tile and wildlife token, and it's the next player's turn. Play continues around the table until there are no wildlife tokens left to replace the one taken by a player. So there will only be 3 tiles here, and these piles will be empty. This means that each player will have exactly 20 turns, and after the last player's turn, it's time to score. But before we talk about that, there's a couple of special rules you need to know about.
These tiles with an arrow on them are called keystone tiles. If you place a wildlife token on a keystone tile, you get one of these nature tokens that look like a pine cone.
On your turn, you can spend a nature token to pick mismatched tiles and tokens, so you don't have to take the pair. You could take this tile and this token. If you do this, just replace the tile and the token to the same place you took them from, and don't change the position of any other tiles. You can also hang on to the nature tokens you get, and you get 1 point for each one you have at the end of the game. Anytime you spend a nature token, just put it back in the supply.
Another special rule is if wildlife are overpopulated. If all 4 wildlife tokens are the same, then they're overpopulated, and you must replace them with 4 new tokens randomly drawn from the bag. And put the new tokens from left to right. You can't pick which tokens go with which tiles, they have to be random. If the 4 new tokens match, replace them again until they don't all 4 match.
If 3 of the tokens are the same, the active player can choose to replace the matching tokens, and only the matching tokens. Do this just like you would when they're overpopulated. Replace them with 3 random tokens. You can only do this once per turn, so if you replace them and end up with another 3 matching tokens, you just have to use those tokens. You can also spend 1 nature token to replace any number of wildlife tokens before your turn.
Now let's talk about scoring. There's 4 ways to score.
Habitat tile corridors, habitat tile corridor majorities, nature tokens, and wildlife scoring cards. A habitat tile corridor is a group of connected habitat types. So this is a forest corridor and this is a prairie corridor, but this is not a wetland corridor because even though the tiles are next to each other, the pictures don't match up. Each player scores 1 point per habitat tile in their largest corridor of each habitat type. So you score for your largest section of mountains, forests, prairies, wetlands, and rivers. So this looks like my largest forest, so I would score 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And for my largest mountain, I would score 1, 2, 3, and so on.
Then you score for who has the largest corridor in each habitat type.
The point scored depends on the number of players. In a 2-player game, the player with the largest corridor in each habitat type gets 2 points, and you score each habitat type separately. In a 3 and 4-player game, the winner of each habitat type gets 3 points, and the second place gets 1 point. If there's a tie, the tied players get 2 points each, and there's no second place.
And for nature tokens, you get 1 point for each token you have at the end of the game. And for wildlife scoring cards, you only score for the tokens. You don't score anything for the symbols on the tiles.
Each type of wildlife scores in a different way, and each card of each type of wildlife scores different too, but they all use similar principles. For example, bears always score for groups of bears in various sizes, and elks score for groups in different shapes. Salmon score for runs of fish, hawks score for spreading out over the landscape, and foxes score for animals next to them. The back of the rulebook has detailed explanations for all of the scoring cards. Let's talk about scoring your first game with card A for each animal.
On card A, bears score for pairs, and only pairs. If you have more than 2 bears touching, they don't score anything. And this shows you what you score based on the number of pairs you have. So for 1 pair you get 4 points, and for 4 pairs you get 27 points.
For elk on card A, you score for each line of elk, up to 4 elk in a line, and each elk can only score once. So if you have 2 lines crossing, the elk where they cross can only score for 1 line. Salmon score for creating runs of fish, which is groups of adjacent salmon, but a salmon in a run can't be touching more than 2 salmon. On card A, each run scores based on how many fish are in it, so 1 fish gets 2 points and a run of 7 or more fish gets 25 points. For hawks on card A, you get points for each hawk that isn't adjacent to another hawk, meaning they're not touching another tile with a hawk on it. And for foxes on card A, you score for each type of adjacent animal, including other foxes. You get 1 point for each type of animal next to the fox, and if 2 foxes are touching each other, you still score both foxes separately.
At the end of the game, each player adds up their points, and whoever has the highest score wins.
And if there's a tie, the player with the most nature tokens wins. And if there's still a tie, you're just gonna have to share the victory.
And that's Cascadia. If you have any questions or if you have a game you want us to teach, leave us a comment. Thanks for watching.
And be sure to subscribe right here.
Watch our other videos over here.
See you later.
Bye!